All right, welcome everybody to the Joey Mannarino Show. Today we have a fabulous interview. I've been waiting for this one for a while. Ric Grenell is one of the people that has been around in DC and in all different types of forms of politics for quite a long time. But he's one of the rare ones who's actually stayed true to himself and the whole time worked to actually advance the America First agenda. And we're going to talk to him today basically about a little bit of everything. He is one of the greatest out there. He was the Trump's ambassador to Germany. Then he became the acting director of national intelligence. He struck a peace deal between Serbia and Kosovo. This was all in about 4 years where he managed to do all that. Those are accomplishments most people would be absolutely pleased to have even one of them in their entire career. And that was just 4 years of Ric Grenell. And who knows what the future is holding for him with Trump probably getting back into the White House in 2024. You might see Ric Grenell have a major role. At least if you're someone like me, you'd hope to see Ric Grenell have a major role in that. So I'm not going to waste any more time with an introduction. He doesn't really need an introduction when everybody knows who you are. You don't really even need to bring it up. He has been in the room with President Trump and a lot of other major leaders when the decisions mattered most. And President Trump sought his counsel quite a lot because the guy knows what he's doing. We're going to talk to him today about everything that you might want to know. With no further ado, here we have the interview with Ric Grenell. All right, everybody. As promised, we have with us tonight Ric Grenell, and this is a great honor to have him on. He has been the man in the room for so many different events. President Trump, before President Trump, and even in the next term of President Trump, I'm pretty sure he will be in that room. Thank you so much for coming on tonight. How are you?
Oh, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for asking.
Yes, so there's so much going on. I mean, we are watching as this presidential primary continues on. And Donald Trump, I mean, every poll, I don't think you can find me a poll that would show that he's not running away with the entire race. What do you even have to say at this point as to the state of this race, why certain people are even carrying on, and how you see it playing out by the time Iowa comes around?
Yeah, good question. I've learned one thing about politics is that there's a whole bunch of egos in
Mm-hmm.
politics. People who, it's probably in any industry, to be honest, but I know it personally from the political realm of huge egos. I wish that people were really into it for trying to get the policy right or help America or, make the world a better place. I think there's some of that, but there's a lot of ego. What I will say is I believe that for the next 20, 30 years, maybe even longer, elections in the future, we're always going to be asking who's the MAGA candidate, who's
Mm-hmm.
the one that is really America first. Kind of like about 10 years ago or maybe 15 years ago, we always would say like, oh, did they have any connection to Reagan? Did they work for Reagan? Or
Mm-hmm.
oh, this is a person who worked in Reagan Bush. Oh, well, they must be like, peace through
Legitimate,
strength.
right? Yeah.
And the whole idea of peace through strength, which was what Ronald Reagan did, I think is just America first.
Right.
I believe that you should be training our U.S. diplomats. All of the embassies overseas are like, they're like American offices overseas, right? That's the
Mm-hmm.
way we should look at them is like, this is the American office overseas. We're pushing America policy. We're trying to make America safer, stronger, better. I believe that diplomats should actually be trained in how to make it clear that when America puts itself first, there's a rules-based world. There is a
Right.
society around the world that concentrates on human rights,
Mm-hmm.
capitalism, the rule of law. All of those things happen when America decides to put itself first. We don't conquer. We don't go into other lands and
Right.
rape and steal and take. So I do believe that the world wants a rules-based system, and America has to be the one that shows that example by putting ourselves first and just saying these are the rules for us. Hopefully, you'll follow.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with you. And the whole concept of diplomacy, I mean, Trump, everybody was scared when Trump was first getting into office. They said, oh my God, foreign policy is going to be a complete disaster. He's going to blow everything up. We were scared of wars here. And I mean, I wasn't, but the regular media talking heads thought that everything was going to blow up. Then he put people like you in charge and other foreign policy experts who really were able to help enact his agenda in a way that we never expected. I mean, when you were there was a peace deal made between Serbia and Kosovo. This is something that, I mean, I dated a Serbian woman for 3 years. I've been to Serbia. I know a little bit about that conflict. Nobody could ever have imagined there would be any type of resolution to that, especially in such a short period of time. What's interesting is we saw how quickly things could be put back together with President Trump, Abraham Accords, Washington Accords. I mean, there were so many accords in a short period of time. And now we look at Biden, and just as everything was put together so quickly, everything unraveled in a way that I didn't even imagine. It started in Afghanistan, and now we've seen it go through Ukraine, Russia, Israel now. There's disaster everywhere. And just from a layman's perspective, I know nothing about these foreign affairs as much as you do. How in the world can you destroy everything that was built in that time and just turn the world into complete chaos so fast? It almost has to be by design in a way, right?
Look, I'll add one more to your list is Sudan, and there's other trouble in Africa, the Congo.
Yeah.
We've now are seeing conflict arise in Sudan. I'm so old that I actually worked on this issue in 2001 and two. I went with the UN Security Council to Kenya in 2004 to sign a peace agreement between the players that were causing chaos in Sudan. So I've
Mhm.
been working on this issue for a long time. I've worked for the presidential envoy for Sudan, there were like 2 or 3 different ones that I worked for. So I know these issues in Africa well, and being at the UN for 8 years, the UN is a lot about Africa, and you're right. It's just there's not a part of the world that is calmer.
No,
There's
everything is
chaos
worse.
in every single part of the world. Look, I could talk a long time about why I think the war in Europe, the war in Ukraine is the fault largely of Joe Biden and the Senate Democrats. They dropped the Trump sanctions on Putin's pipeline called Nord Stream 2.
Right.
He had sanctions on that pipeline. We were not going to let it become operational. Chancellor Merkel really wanted those sanctions to be dropped because she wanted that energy after really making terrible decisions for a manufacturing-based economy like Germany to
Hmm.
somehow think that you're going to run a manufacturing-based economy on wind and solar. It's
Yeah,
just,
it's impossible.
it's ridiculous. And so she doesn't get enough blame for that. I like Chancellor Merkel. We had a great relationship, but I think she made a lot of mistakes, and I think people should start talking about those. But here is what I think is the problem with the Biden administration and Joe Biden in particular when it comes to foreign policy. He wants the approval of the Europeans and the world. I
Right.
think the opposite of America first is consensus with the Europeans. Uh,
Hmm.
I like the idea of consensus, and we should all strive for that, but that's not the goal. Consensus should never be the goal. Consensus is a tool that if we can get everybody on our side, then great, we can say we've got the international support. But many times, we need to lead the world. I can tell you after being at the UN for 8 years that there's really not an issue that can be solved without American leadership. And
Right.
you brought up Serbia, Kosovo. Our policy in the Trump administration was ignore the politics and let's try to build economies. Let's try to get the economies working. Let's open up the borders. Let's try to get rail and airline reciprocity. Let's
Right.
get a flight from Belgrade to Pristina and back. We were making all of that progress and really rejecting the politics. The Biden administration has decided that their focus is going to be all about letting the Europeans take control.
Right, which
I
hasn't
believe that
worked,
it
obviously, because
hasn't
that's
worked, but
why everyone from here had to step in.
and that's why I think Biden maximizes the applause of the Europeans. He wants the Europeans to like him. He wants people to say, "Oh, you're great." Look, here's a guy, Joe Biden, who's been in politics for so long. He
Right.
knows everybody. He wants to be well liked. This is his life, and he's not going to go up against people. I mean, we should be tougher on Qatar right now.
Yeah.
Um,
That's what I keep asking. Obviously, they're housing Hamas. They're responsible for quite a bit of this.
the
What is he doing?
billionaires, you mean, the
Yeah.
billionaires of Hamas.
Yes, exactly. What are they doing about it? What is Biden doing about it? They don't know anything about this conflict. And I understand he's in a hard place with the left or whatever, but you've got to abandon that stuff. You've got
But
to
you know what?
actually
He's
do
in a
what's
harder
right.
place. He's in a harder place with the people that he wants approval from, like Sisi in Egypt, like King in Jordan. He wants the applause of these world leaders, and so he doesn't want to go up against them because he's like, "Oh, we've been dude man bros for 25 years," and
Mm,
so he literally won't stand up to him. Where Donald Trump was like, I don't care what Germany is asking. I'm going to do what's best for America.
right,
And
which is how it should be. That's common sense. You're elected to represent the country of America. You're not elected to
yeah,
represent the world. And I think, I never heard it really put that way, but that's really only the way you can explain it with Joe Biden, because otherwise none of it makes sense. Now, with this conflict in Israel, we don't really have any leadership in America right now. It's a free for all. Biden has made a few speeches. You have Congress, I mean, half of the Democrat, you have a Hamas caucus basically in there. Rashida Tlaib is leading that and cheerleading the craziest sentiments I've ever heard, from the river to the sea. And then she goes, "Oh, that's not really anti Jewish. I'm just saying stuff," essentially. Luckily, we got her censured yesterday. I think it should have been expulsion in reality, for not only that, but other things she's done. And yesterday, you tweeted about this. You said that John Kirby said that there was no specific threat on American servicemen or women in the Middle East. And then you said that you got a call from an intel official at ODNI saying that he hasn't been properly briefed. There is. How do you go out as the spokesman and just say something so obviously stupid, right? Because anybody with two brain cells could tell you there's something going on. There's a threat to Americans out there. How do you go out so improperly briefed? That's why I always say, are they just that dumb, or what's really going on here?
it's a really good question because John Kirby is not dumb, but for him to go out and say, we have no specific intelligence on a threat to American men and women in the Middle East, that was wrong. That was plain wrong. I got a call as I tweeted about it. And, the very next day, today, we have an attack by the Houthis on on a drone, American drone, $30+ million drone that is suddenly shot down. Now, we know the Houthis are targeting Americans and American equipment and American intelligence. This is a fact. The
Mm.
intelligence community knows this. Why John Kirby was not briefed properly and goes out and says these things, I think is a really dangerous, slippery slope. He needs to get briefed up. They need to deal in facts.
Right. And I don't think they even understand that. They just want to say whatever plays well to the media, or they're worried about reelection. I truly don't understand. But you
Well,
just watch it.
here's one
Yeah,
thing. Can I say this? They get away with it
they
because
do.
the media don't push back. So, for instance, John Kirby says this statement. No one in the White House press corps is even checking him.
Right.
Now, I guarantee you, if a Trump spokesperson had said that line, there would be massive fact checkers and intel leaks and people saying all these things about how he was undermining the intelligence community or the Defense
Right.
Department or making us less safe. There'd be these huge jumps, but they get away with it. So what happens is when they get away with it, they get more cavalier the next time. They get more empowered the next time to say whatever they want because there's no pushback. So it's really shame on the media in DC who are allowing the Biden administration to say whatever they want to say and go unchecked.
Yeah, it is pathetic. I mean, even when you watch the press briefings, there's barely any pushback. When there is, she just won't call on them. Then again, I mean, there's been that reporter, Simon Ateba, she hasn't called on him in months, and he's just
Yeah.
sitting there like he can't get a word in. That's not what a free and fair press is supposed to be about. You're actually supposed to take questions. And I mean, your administration was quite transparent with the media,
Oh,
even though
Trump, he would tell you what he was thinking. He
yeah,
wouldn't wait
you
until the
never got you
policy was
never had to
done.
wait. He just ran out and talked to them in front of the helicopter. You could barely hear the guy, but
Yeah.
with the microphones you managed to, and we actually got a window into the president's brain. This president, I think you there's really not much to take a window into, frankly, but we don't know what he's thinking or whoever is calling the shots is thinking. And that's dangerous, for everyone. How do
I
people
want,
around the world look at it though?
yeah, I want to say something about what you just said because I think it's a really important point. Before President Trump, there was, I remember the media just screaming about, we want to understand your thinking, Mr. President. This was in Obama days and Bush
Hmm.
days. We don't just want to hear when the policy is finished and you
Right.
announce. Tell us like what you're thinking. Tell us the criteria, what goes into this policy. So they were complaining because they wanted more access and more, uh, an insight into the
Mhm.
process. Trump gave him that. Trump would
Right.
say, "Well, this is what I'm thinking." He might change his mind the next day. He literally gave us an insight into how the process comes about, what type of information would change his mind. He wasn't waiting for the policy to be signed off on 12 different levels, and then you'd stick with it no matter what, like Afghanistan
Right.
debacle with Biden. If there was a problem, he would adjust. That's exactly what we've been asking for. And then
Mhm.
Washington didn't like it because the power was no longer with them in packaging the process. They had to allow Trump to really take control. And people were more interested in hearing from Trump than they were the analysis of what was going on behind the scenes.
Right, because I think with Trump, it really was the buck stopped with him. You really got him to he took all the responsibility essentially. He wasn't passing around, oh, we're going to ask this person, that person. I mean, Karine Jean-Pierre, we never get a Biden press conference. So it's not like he's passing around responsibility. He's not even speaking. But every few questions, oh, I'll have to ask this person. I'll have to ask that person. And you never hear from this or that person. It goes in some page
And the
eight
media let it
press
go.
briefing. Yeah, there's nothing in the form of accountability here. And frankly, for anything that this administration does, not only with answering questions from the press, from Biden's history of corruption, from all the failed, I mean, $83 billion of equipment over in Afghanistan. Where is the accounting of this stuff? Why don't we have a list? Why don't the media even talk about what was left there and where it is now? Because, I mean, if anyone would know, maybe you'd have a better idea than me. Where is all this stuff? Where could it possibly be? Because clearly it's being used against us at this point, right?
Yeah, look, a lot of it is being used against us. A lot of it was just left there for the government or whoever has access to it. I'm sure they're selling it. There's a black market. But I will tell you this. I was in the Oval Office when we were beginning to draw down the troops, and we had a very meticulous process. We wanted to get to zero, but we wouldn't go to zero unless it was a safe thing, and we were doing it very slowly and
Right.
not always on the timeline of what the Afghans wanted. But I remember being in the Oval Office where the president was pushing back on military leaders saying, I want you to get every tent back. I want unused cups. I
Hmm.
want everything that we have paid for to come back to the United States. And if you can't bring it back to the United States, then blow it up. I remember him saying
Yeah.
this. He was like, "We're not going to leave it for the Afghans to figure out or sell it or whatever. We want our equipment back, and if you can't get it back, then make sure it's unusable."
Yeah. And we gave them an entire Air Force base. We gave them so many, I mean, vehicles and the top of the line stuff. They're selling it to everyone. Who knows who has it? I hate to know how we're going to find out who has it, frankly, because
Yeah,
that's a
me
very
too.
scary, it's a very scary thought. One more thing I wanted to get you to chime in on a little bit. This border crisis, you are not seeing necessarily just Latin American illegal immigration anymore.
Right.
This is a global scale. And you're seeing a lot of it over in Europe too. The immigration crisis that you see coming through the border of Italy with these boats, it's insane.
Yeah.
What are the actual national security implications, especially for America? Europe, I mean, we have to worry about them too, but really, the one on our soil, this could be a major disaster with everything going on in Palestine right now and all these people that are going to basically need to find somewhere to go. How many of them are going to show up here, do you think? And what are we going to do? Like, I mean, what is going to happen with this situation?
Well, look, let's speak. I travel a lot
Right,
internationally, and I could never travel if I didn't have my passport.
right.
You have to have a scan now, either your hands or your passport or your face.
Yeah,
They
they
know
take your
every
fingerprints
little,
when you walk back in.
they know every detail about you. I have global entry and it's now facial recognition. And they're like, hi, Mr. Grenell. They know me immediately from my face. Imagine if we had uh, daily flights, massive amounts, 250,000 people a month. Imagine if we had all of that coming in by plane and we just let people in and we didn't check. We didn't check to see if you had a visa, a passport, if you were nefarious in some way, if you were out to get us, if you had ill motives. Imagine if we just didn't vet, because that's what's happening at the border. It's a crisis of epic proportion. We have no idea who's coming in. They're unvetted. They're cutting in line, and we already know for sure that there are hundreds of individuals on the terror watch list
Right,
getting in our country. They're in our country.
right.
We stop them if they come in through an airplane. We don't allow them to even get on the airplane. We're really
Mhm.
aggressive. We have whole DHS and the State Department dedicated to stopping these people, except they're coming in through the southern border, and everyone does a big yawn. I will say this: the idea of a sanctuary city, that's where Republicans went wrong. When the Democrats decided to name sanctuary cities, a very nice name for a city that was going to ignore
Mhm.
federal law on immigration, we should have screamed bloody murder. We're not going to have safe havens of whole entire cities that allow you recklessly to just ignore immigration laws and you're protected. Sanctuary cities, that is an attack on our sovereignty, on our
Right.
immigration system. We should have drawn the line there, and we didn't. We let the media and the Democrats come up with this great little name, sanctuary cities. It sounds so nice.
It sure does.
Evil.
Sanctuary
It's evil.
oasis, right? Yeah.
It's an evil place. Imagine if we had a whole city where you could just allow children to drink alcohol.
Yeah.
A whole city that was just geared towards, allowing people to rape. When you have laws, you have to enforce the laws. And I think it's outrageous that we have sanctuary cities where we allow people to ignore the immigration laws while there's a whole bunch of people trying to get in the right way in a long line, cutting the line.
Extremely long
It's
line. I mean,
un-American,
we just did this
un-American.
with we just did it with my wife. She was from Spain. We moved here. It was so tough for her. We had to go medical exams, all these things. I told her about 10 times, you would save me so much money if you would just walk across the damn border and we'd even get a 5-star hotel. I mean, what are we doing here? But it took
I
a long,
know.
it took a few months. Luckily, it was surprisingly quick because they're not even doing interviews for marriages anymore with Joe Biden. They're just letting it, which I mean, I guess it worked out fine for me, but in reality, that's not
Big
right. I
abuse. It
mean,
can be a big abuse.
yeah, I mean, people can really just walk in this country at this point. Forget even with the border, even the legal immigration system is being destroyed by these
We got to
people.
clean it up. Trump
No, absolutely.
elect Trump, and
Streamline
we
it.
got to clean it up.
I understand that. So 2024, hopefully we get President Trump back in. I think really it's pretty hard to imagine Biden winning re-election, and but you never know. It was hard to imagine him even being elected. And then we saw the other night with these elections where Republicans kind of did not have the best night. And before I let you go, I just want to get your take on that. What do we need to do to start winning again? Because right now we are having a very odd time. I was pretty shocked to see Virginia go the way it went and a
Yeah.
few other
Look,
races.
I
What do
don't
we
think
need to
that
do?
I don't think there's any one answer. I think one of the problems is we keep looking for like the one answer and the
Hmm.
one simple. If we knew it, we would fix it.
Of course.
But I do think that, Virginia was different than Ohio, different than Kentucky. And one of the themes is that we have to have uh, donors. We have to be able to compete on a level. The Democrats just have massive amounts of money. I think they should be investigated for
Yeah,
Act Blue and all of that. It seems very suspicious that it's
absolutely.
flooded with money. I don't know how they're getting it.
I mean,
You'll
hundreds
never
and
convince.
thousands of donations from small donors. And then you go to their house, James O'Keefe went and they stared at him blank, like, huh, what are you talking about?
Yeah, and so I know that's Act Blue is they're cheating. There's no question about that, and we should have the FBI look at it. We should have the Department of Justice look at it. We have to be able to do exactly what they do to us, and teach them some of their own lessons. So I think we've got to get our donors to start giving more. We need to be much more organized. I think the RNC has some blame here. They've got
Yeah.
to get their act together. But gone is the day that if you're listening to this podcast and you're a conservative, that you can just sit there and hope that somebody else does something. You got to get involved. You got to give.
Hmm.
You got to talk. You got to start, getting involved on campaigns. You can't just sit back and hope that your world is going to be better. You're going to lose your country unless you get involved.
100%. Rick, thank you so much for being here with me today. It's been an honor to have you and looking forward to saving this country in the future together.
All the best. Thank you for having me.
All right. All right, everybody. That was Ric Grenell. This is a man, I mean, the knowledge that he has in one finger is more than Biden has in his entire body. And these are the kind of people that we need making the decisions for this country. These are the kind of people that we need in the White House advising the president. These are the people that we need in the president's cabinet actually making decisions with information rather than just making decision on, oh, I don't want to upset a certain part of my base. Oh, I have to be careful because I have a 17% approval with Arab Americans. So I'm going to stop supporting Israel, like Joe Biden is trying to walk some weird, fine little tightrope. These are dangerous things that we're doing. And we very seriously need to start thinking again and start using our brains again. And we need minds like Ric Grenell's back in the White House. Only way that's going to happen is if we get a Republican in the White House in 2024. And you all know that Republican for me is Donald J. Trump. So I thank you so much for tuning in tonight. If this is your first time listening to the Joey Mannarino Show, please go on Twitter. Follow me, Joey Mannarino US. If you're listening on Spotify, Rumble, YouTube, somewhere else, join me there. Subscribe, like, follow, whatever they allow you to do. Let's keep spreading the word and making sure that we take this country back from the people who stole it from us. All right, everybody, have a great one.